presentation on the case study, Compulsory Licensing, Thailand, and Abbott Laboratories. This presentation has been prepared by Nadia, Alvaro, Wendy, and Chantel. The Thailand and Abbott case focuses directly on the World Trade Organization's trade-related aspects of intellectual property agreement and how Thailand used compulsory licensing to import lower-cost drugs to combat AIDS and other public health concerns. This presentation will be divided into three main parts. First, we'll describe the mandate of the World Trade Organization. Then we'll look at the meaning of the trade-related aspects of intellectual property agreement and compulsory licensing. And finally, we'll provide a summary of the Abbott Laboratory case in relation to the TRIPS agreement and compulsory licensing in Thailand and Brazil. Let's take a look at the formation of the World Trade Organization. In the 1930s in the United States, the Smoot-Hawley Act had raised tariffs on goods to such an extent that it contributed to the Depression. The United States and other countries, in an attempt to avoid this situation in the future, supported the idea to reduce trade barriers and tariffs to stimulate economic growth. Countries relied on multilateral negotiation under the tenets of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT, to reduce trade barriers. In 1995, the World Trade Organization was established to act as a moderator for GATT and the broader set of agreements that had been established in the Uruguay Round. On page 575 of the text, Barron notes that the competition between imports and domestic production and the opportunities to trade in world markets provide incentives for interests to seek support for exports and/or protection from imports. Trade policy thus depends not only on government actions, but also on the market and non-market strategies of private interests. The Trade-Related Property Rights, or TRIPS agreement, was negotiated in the Uruguay round of multilateral trade negotiations. This agreement was especially beneficial to brand-name pharmaceutical companies who were given the right to patent their medication for an extended life of 20 years in the United States. Countries participating in the World Trade Organization committed to conforming their patent laws to this agreement. Under TRIPS, international trading partners must adhere to and respect intellectual property rights that include patents, trademarks, brands, etc. This meant that in World Trade Organization countries, companies were not allowed to duplicate patent medicine and sell it at vastly reduced rates. Article 31 of the TRIPS agreement allowed flexibility for countries by allowing for violation of a patent. Under Article 31, countries have the option of invoking a compulsory license that allows the country to manufacture generic versions of drugs in the event of national emergencies, circumstances of extreme urgency, or for non-public commercial use. In the Doha round, developing countries insisted on more flexibility in interpreting Article 31. In 2003, the World Trade Organization allowed member countries to waive a provision of Article 31 so as to allow them to import drugs under a compulsory license. Additionally, the deadline for developing countries to conform their patent laws with TRIPS was also extended to 2016. 2 years later, Article 31 BIS was added to TRIPS. This allowed developing countries to import drugs for the treatment of HIV, tuberculosis, or malaria. While most people thought of Article 31 as applying to extreme health crises, the language within the article was subject to interpretation. The case that we are summarizing for this chapter relates to the patent owned by Abbott Laboratories for their AIDS and other high-value drugs, and Thailand's choice to invoke its right to waive fees under Article 31. In order to fully understand the position of all parties involved, it's important to detail the way in which pharmaceutical companies price their drugs. Pharmaceutical companies price drugs using a tiered system. Prices for developed countries are market-based, major discounts are offered to the lowest income countries, and middle-income countries' drugs are priced at a medium level. Thailand and Brazil are considered upper middle-income countries by the World Bank as their per capita gross national income is between $2,000 and $3,000. Conversely, in the least developed nations, this number is less than $300. Using a tiered system allows the pharmaceutical companies to meet the needs of developing countries while maintaining shareholder value. For an example of the tiered pricing structure, consider Abbott Laboratories' drug Kaletra, which is used to treat AIDS. The drug was sold at $7,000 a year to developed nations, $2,200 a year to middle-income countries, and $500 a year for countries that are least developed. Reduction in price at the middle and lower levels of the tier could potentially mean that developed countries would absorb the costs and ultimately outprice the drugs within the marketplace. Abbott Laboratories has to be careful that they balance the social aspects of providing AIDS drugs to developing nations with the financial risks involved with underpricing their product. Now let's look at the situation in Thailand. Thailand had implemented a national healthcare plan in 2004. In 2006, Dr. Monkol was appointed health minister. A strong opponent of pharmaceutical companies and their licensing fees, Dr. Monkol announced that Thailand was invoking Article 31 to import Merck's AIDS drug at a lower cost from India. The next year, Thailand announced they would be invoking the article to import Abbott's Kaletra medication as well. Thailand justified its decision by saying that its people could not afford the high costs of purchasing Abbott drugs. They anticipated that the compulsory licensing would reduce costs by 2/3. This decision was endorsed by the World Trade Organization. The government decided to produce a version of Kaletra domestically through a state-owned government procurement organization, or GPO. By the end of 2007, Thailand had invoked 3 compulsory licenses to 3 different pharmaceutical companies. The health ministry estimated that the 3 compulsory licenses would save the government $24 million. Despite being listed as an upper-middle income country, Thailand receives support for their actions from various groups. The World Health Organization and the United Nations agency responsible for coordinating AIDS care and prevention, among many other interest groups, supported Thailand's move. Abbott Laboratories was not happy with the invocation of the article. They publicly announced that they would withdraw applications for 7 new drugs that were slated to come to the Thai market. This included Illuvia, a version of Kaletra that could be stored at room temperature. The Public Affairs Director of Abbott International, Dirk van Eden, stated, quote, "The Thai government has chosen to limit access to medicines by breaking patents and discouraging companies like Abbott from bringing new medicines forwards there. This matter is about intellectual property and the integrity of the patent system," end quote. However, various groups were in favor of Thailand's decision to invoke Article 31 and were very much against Abbott's retaliation strategy. Thailand's head of Doctors Without Borders, Paul Cawthorne, accused Abbott of acting like a spoiled child. The president of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, Michael Weinstein, stated, quote, "This is a new low, and I'm horrified that Abbott would deprive poor people in need of life-saving medications, particularly for those living with HIV/AIDS in a country as hard hit by the epidemic as Thailand," end quote. In the United States, the Christian Brothers Investment Services Group warned against the risks involved with making such an unpopular decision on Abbott's brand image, customer relationships, and shareholder value. The director of UNAIDS, Prasada Rao, appreciated the strong statement that Thailand was making by invoking compulsory licenses and urged many other countries to do the same. Responding to the threats in the non-market environment, Abbott changed their strategy. At the urging of the World Health Organization, they agreed to lower the price of the Kaletra drug to $1,000 per year for Thailand and several other developing countries. They also offered to negotiate with Thailand. If Thailand dropped the compulsory licensing, Abbott would resubmit their application for the Illuvia drug, but not the other 6 medication applications. Abbott CEO Miles D. White expressed the company's choice for this was a result of, quote, "concern that compulsory licensing would be abused ever more widely, using HIV as an excuse," end quote. Thailand refused the negotiations. The Thai government felt that lowering the price of one drug without adding safeguards for future drug requirements was inadequate to address the public health concerns and risks involved. The public relations problems for Abbott Laboratories only got worse. A cyber attack was launched against Abbott by the French AIDS activist group Act Up Paris. Between 500 and 1,000 activists in over 12 countries participated in an international day of action which overloaded Abbott's website during a 4-hour period. Abbott responded to this attack by writing to the activists and filing a lawsuit. The action surrounding Thailand's stance on compulsory licensing was of special Brazil and Thailand shared similar public health concerns and economic states. Brazil's aid program was successful and brought down the rate of adult infection to the same level as the United States. The program's success came in large part from Brazil offering free drugs to those infected with AIDS. However, the drug costs were increasing substantially. In May 2007, Brazil invoked compulsory licensing for the drug efavirenz. The country then used the imitation drug from India and also tried to negotiate the reduction of prices for other drugs, included in negotiations with Abbott's Electra. Discussion questions. Based on their experiences with Thailand, what should Abbott Laboratories do regarding the problem of compulsory licensing in Brazil? What other non-market positioning actions can Abbott take to protect itself from future Article 31 issues? We saw Abbott's strategy for dealing with Thailand's use of compulsory licensing change throughout the case. Do you feel that their strategy was well integrated, or did it focus too much on their market environment? Should Abbott have been more aware of the backlash that would accompany their strategy? Why do you think that the World Health Organization, the Clinton Foundation, and various other interest groups supported Thailand's decision, considering their classification as an upper-middle income country? The Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers Association of Thailand insinuated that the compulsory licenses were being used as a bargaining chip. Do you agree? Do you think that Abbott's swift action to pull all new drugs from the market was a type of bargaining chip? Please respond to some or all of these questions in the associated discussion forum in Moodle. In an effort to encourage discussion, please respond to or comment on another student's post as well. Thank you for watching our presentation.